Where did we go wrong in our Dynasty Rookie Drafts? We correct history and redraft the 2024 class tonight on the IBT Podcast.
I've been going dummy, out of bounds, putting on a clinic. Stick around, carrots in my hardware. KC, caught him in the crosshair. Look at me, been the guy calling Mr. MVP. Keep your ass on the bench by my MPC. Earn my stripes like I fix this league. Your dog's on the turf, my dog's in the street. You can find me somewhere in between. Never a dull moment like a movie scene. About to do the ops like I did this beat. Let them keep talking RG3. Coming to you live. This is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024, and this is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, your place for both a refreshing and feel-good take on fantasy football and NFL gambling. And we've made it into the final month of the year, gentlemen. Christmas swiftly approaching, as is the fantasy football postseason. But before we get there, we're going to look back and see where we went wrong with our Dynasty Rookie Draft redo tonight on the program. I'm your host, Seth Wilcock, coming off a great, refreshing Thanksgiving break. And that's in part due to this amazing team around me that includes a big business, light ranching son of a bitch, a man who I'm sure had his share of Cajun fixing this past weekend, Eric Romoff. What's cooking, Tex?
Man, we out here, like you said, got to dive into that rice dressing over the course of the Thanksgiving break. And now all of a sudden, we're here in the last week of the regular season for the fantasy football players out there. It's crunch time. I've got several spots where it is win and get in. I kind of like it when the playoffs start a week early for me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm on the cusp of going 11 for 11, making the postseason. I'm already bounced from two postseasons that started early as well. So always fun to cut down on a couple leagues, but it is crunch time, 100%. Money on the line, pride, bragging rights, shit talking, all up in the air over the next month. We are also joined by a man who is the number one hater on the internet of Veggie Trays, True Love, and Drake London, our entertainment and NFL betting expert, internet pundit, Steve Lawson. Hope you had a great trip to the shores of Lake Erie, my friend.
I did. I was out in your neck of the woods a bit. I was in Cleveland for Thanksgiving this year, and I don't know what rice dressing is, but that
you missed last week's show. You obviously did not watch it, so fuck you for that one, Steven. Any snow in the Lake Erie area? Because I know all across Western PA, up in that area, they're just getting hit hard.
Not while I was there, thankfully. I got out of there before the snow showed up, although I got back to Boston and now it's snowing. So just flurries right now, but it's freezing cold and I'm not loving it. So I think a trip to Florida is probably next on my agenda.
And is there anything better than a snow game, gentlemen? Like this whole past weekend, Thursday night snow game, going into Friday, which was awesome as well. And then Saturday, we had a great college football slate. And then Sunday, all capped off with a snow game up in Buffalo for the ages. It's been a great season. So thankful to everyone who's riding with us. We have an absolutely loaded program for you today. Back in the day, redrafting the 2024 Dynasty Rookie class. Also in the scope, waivers a week early. And from the forum, we're going to answer your questions in the chat and from the forum. Shout out to the IBT family. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving weekend. Soaked in some of that great football we were chatting about. And if you enjoy this type of content, the easiest way to support us is like this video and subscribe if you are new. And also, we are joined by the Wizard of Oz behind the scenes, Yinzer Ginger producer Kyle Scott. Kyle, great to see you this past weekend for a couple hours. Kyle and I got to watch the end of the game where fists were flying between the Ohio State Buckeyes and Michigan Wolverines. How you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing great, and I think every college football game should end like that. Honestly, every football game should end like that. I want to see fists flying no matter what.
Very controversial topic. That we had Gus, Jeannie, and Joel on the call of that one. They were not enjoying the fist flying. I think in a game that you promote the fights, you promote the rivalry and the hate-filledness of it, Eric. I think it's okay. Like, I think like someone's going to get hurt eventually. So I think we got to tone it down a notch, right? Like there could be some lawsuits flying out there. You won't need anyone trampled. I saw some, non-players going down on the ground. So I think that's really the issue. But I don't give a fuck about, if Captain Jack wants to square up with Khalil Mullins. Like, it is what it is, man. And like, let's go.
Man, I think we're talking about a slippery slope here, right? Like, especially with the advent of somewhat unnecessarily fans storming the field and rushing the field after a big win, right? Like, if those two worlds combine, it could be a real ugly situation real quickly. And also, I think it's kind of weird. Like, I know there's been famous flag plants in history. I think of Baker Mayfield specifically,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
But like, I don't know why this was the weekend where everyone was like, we're planting flags and we're throwing hands this weekend. It definitely brought a chaotic energy, which was entertaining, but practically speaking, someone, a fan, a media member, even a mainstream player that might impact like the newly expanded college football playoff, could get hurt in this moment, and it seems like it's all kind of avoidable. So it feels a little stupid to me.
I feel you, Steve. You'd be a flag planner, right? I know you would be.
Let me tell you. So I was when I played sports, I was a bit of an agitator. I still
I
am.
can tell.
Like
Yeah.
playing like rec leagues, and I'm an agitator. I'm not there to make friends. I'm there to win.
Yeah.
And that is when I was a pitcher, the first batter I'd face, I would throw at.
Yes.
Every single.
I think all of this is fair game, and I think I would encourage it. That is also my preferred style. Once the game's over, the game's over. You know what I mean?
You know what? I am a nice person, I like to think. There is a reputation that I've developed a bit in some leagues that I'm in for being a little bit of an instigator, and I you know what? Sometimes when it's over, I'm not done.
Bro, sports bring out the worst in us, right? And
it brings out the worst in me sometimes.
And I think like I couldn't even imagine having my livelihood, my life on the line, and also
I'll tell you what, if someone planted a flag on my field, we'd be fighting.
Okay.
We'd be fighting.
Well, no fighting tonight on the program, but thanks again for everyone listening. We got Ben already riding with us in the chat. What's up, Ben? Good to see you, buddy.
Hi, Ben.
Let's go ahead and get this party started, though, with a little back in the day.
They ain't make them like this way back in the day. Took a shot, couldn't miss way back in the day. Couldn't predict how it could all change. Don't you ever forget how far we came. How far we came. Never forget how far we came. How far we came. Remember how it was way back in the day.
All right, tonight we are redrafting the 2024 Dynasty Rookie Class, Superflex Tight End Premium Leagues, 12-team leagues. First, I wanted to pull up one of my recent rookie drafts. This is from my home league, which I feel like is very consistent with what you would get in a normal Dynasty league, whether that's a mix of analysts or just fans. And I will say this was not a tight end premium league, but there is definitely usually some tight end bias in this one. People do like having a good tight end. So I'm going to go ahead and read through a couple of these first picks. And I want you guys to let me know what kind of sticks out to you here. Other than the fact that I just absolutely fleeced some people in this league. Caleb Williams goes as the 101, Marvin Harrison Jr. to the 102, Malik Nabers at 3, Odunze at 4, Jayden Daniels 5, JJ McCarthy 6, Drake Maye 7, a run of wide receivers, Xavier Worthy, Lad McConkey, then Brock Bowers at the 110, Brian Thomas at the 111, and Bo Nix at the 112. Eric, is there anything that really sticks out to you looking back at just the overall rookie class? The one thing to me is like, man, none of this depth really paid off at all. Like none of these third or fourth, even mid to late second round picks have done absolute shit this year.
Yeah, and I mean, look, that's kind of par for the course, right? You know, anything past pick like 15 or so on average, you're really rolling the dice. I'll double down on your pat on the back, nabbing Brian Thomas Jr. there. at the 111 was a beautiful pick. I'm also noticing no Tyrone Tracy on this board anywhere. I would think that you of all people would be in a dynasty league with certified ball knowers. I was kind of surprised to see that he wasn't on the board here.
I will say this happened on the Sunday right after the draft. So this was hot before Tyrone Tracy's name really got popped up. I
mean, Tyrone Tracy's name didn't pop up till like August, into the season almost.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like this was back in like, early or late April. So I think that's why there was no Tracy on this board. Bucky Irving in the 4th round, though, I was pretty I was really happy with that pick. But like, honestly, like a lot of disappointment, I think here, Steve. Like looking even at the 2nd round, Jonathon Brooks didn't play this whole season. Keon Coleman has been good at times, but it's been hard to know when to exactly to start him. He's been banged up as of late. Blake Corum, Trey Benson haven't done much. Ricky Pearsall had a couple big games, and then as soon as people trusted him, had a donut. Nothing from Penix. Very little from Wright. Xavier Legette, like he's been okay, but then like Roman Wilson hasn't seen the field. Troy Franklin's been nothing so far this season. What are your thoughts on this class as a whole and kind of just the shift in how we're feeling about it? 5-6 months later?
Yeah, I look at the 2nd round. There's a lot of guys in there that you had to know when you drafted them that was going to be a wait and see kind of thing. If this is Dynasty, you knew Michael Penix wasn't playing this year. Odds were he wasn't going to play this year, right? They signed Cousins to the big deal, and they drafted this guy, but he might wind up playing, right? So he might wind up paying off for you right when you need him to. But you look at it like, yeah, I guess a lot of these running backs are the victims of the league suddenly and very aggressively shifting back to the bell cow running back. We're seeing that happen. Jonathon Brooks, they were like, we're willing to wait it out with him. It doesn't matter. Blake Corum started with like 5 of the first 6 carries of the game, was averaging like 6 yards a carry or something like that this week, and then just like never touched the ball again. It seems like McVay's willing to ride out Kyren Williams until maybe next season. Trey Benson, same thing, right? Like James Conner's the guy, but all of a sudden he's starting to look a little bit slower. Benson's kind of coming up as he's slowing down. That's a wait and see. Legette, he was tied to Carolina. You know, that was going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
Mitchell, he's fast, but what else is he good at? We'll see. Wilson.
Wilson's got to be the most disappointing. I mean,
no, he can't be because he went to Pittsburgh.
The Steelers had a clear need at wide receiver too.
They couldn't make Deontay Johnson work.
We're rolling out Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin right now.
Yeah, you know what though?
If you want to talk about biggest disappointment, I don't see how you blow past Xavier Worthy there in the middle point of the first round.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy is pretty rough. In the middle part of the first round, that's rough. Keon Coleman, when he plays, like when he's played outside the injury, he's played great.
Let's jump into player by player. We're gonna go ahead and redraft these fulls, but I did want to kind of bring this up just in general, like, hey, let's look back because I think we're gonna have a lot of shifts and a lot of different feelings. Even Jayden Daniels falling all the way to the 5th, and this is very interesting. So
is this Superflex too?
This is Superflex. Yep, correct. So. Let's go ahead. Let's start it up here. Eric, I believe you have the 101 in this draft. Is it Jayden Daniels? Is he your 101? Is he the first pick off a board for you in the Superflex tight end premium format?
He is not the first pick off the board for me. I think there's a pretty clear tier between him and the player who I will select first being a tight end premium, none other than the second coming Brock Bowers, your tight end 1 on the season for 2024. I think he's 2 catches away from the rookie record for receptions. He's
insane,
on pace to blow past Mike Ditka's receiving yardage record as well. And dude's an absolute weapon, right? Like people were kind of joking when he got drafted to the Raiders that they sort of fell asleep and got auto drafted, right? And turns out that he's actually far and away their best receiver and probably still would be if Davante Adams was on that team right now.
I mean, he's leading all rookies, including Malik Nabers, including Marvin Harrison Jr. in all these stats. And if you factor in the tight end premium format and how hard it is to find a good tight end, it makes sense, and he should be getting an upgrade at quarterback as well, maybe by way of Shedeur Sanders. I'm in the middle of finishing up my first mock draft, and that's where I think everyone has him landing there at potentially going 2 overall. So Brock Bowers at the 101. Steve, thoughts on Bowers, and who are you going with at the 102?
I like Bowers at the 101. I mean, it's so clear that he's the only tight end in this class you really, really want. And in a tight end premium, especially with the shit show at the position all of a sudden, I mean, why not shore it up for the next, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that. At the 102, though, I jumped at the opportunity, and I would have taken this guy 101 still as Jayden Daniels. This guy's unbelievable. And he was my QB1 coming into this draft the entire way. I thought the Bears should have drafted him instead of Caleb Williams. Like, real life fantasy doesn't matter. Jayden Daniels was the guy. He is an athletic freak. In the middle of the year, we saw his rushing production dip, and I think that was much more due to that rib injury that he was suffering through rather than anything else that was going on. This guy's got an absolute monster arm. He's slippery. He's quick. He's really accurate, and he's a good decision maker. He is everything you want in a franchise guy. He's a top 10 quarterback in the league already as a rookie. There's no reason Jayden Daniels wouldn't have been my 101.
I feel so dumb because in that very draft, gentlemen, I actually traded back from the 103 into a spot where I had both the 5th and the 6th pick, Jayden Daniels, on the board. I traded both those picks again, and I got out of them. And my issue with Jayden Daniels is we saw him get lit up at LSU, and he was absolutely playing in the SEC and playing against some of the best competition in college football. But he has really learned for the most part how to protect himself and slide well. And that's been great. And I don't have enough Jayden Daniels exposure because I was afraid of that. And I've been burned so many times in the past. I drafted a shit ton of Anthony Richardson in 2023. I've drafted a shit ton of Lamar Jacksons this decade as well, and it just hasn't paid off down the stretch to win leagues. So hopefully Daniels can continue being hot, but I think he's a deserving 102. I think some would argue the 101 in a rookie redraft. I'm going to go ahead and change gears here with Malik Nabers as the 103. He is the number 1 rookie wide receiver in terms of targets and receptions by a pretty wide margin. Looking just at the wide receivers, we're excluding Bowers from that margin. But he just hasn't delivered big yardage or TD performances since really like week 3. He scored a couple touchdowns in week 3, has not scored since then. I would argue it's been the overall team play. Daniel Jones wasn't great by any means. I still think like any quarterback's going to struggle behind that dog shit offensive line. Dable's not calling a great game necessarily either. Wide receiver 12 on the season still, and wide receiver 8 in points per game, which isn't too bad. Number 1 in wide receiver target share, 36.3% target share. That is absurd for a rookie. I mean, I don't know if we've ever seen that high of a target share. Eric, have you? I know you're a big target share guy. Do you remember anyone pulling that in a rookie season? 36.3%.
It's high. It's super high, right? And the players that are up in that tier are some of the top players in the game, right? You think about what Jamar Chase did coming in. You think about what Justin Jefferson did coming in, right? Like these are guys that are immediately in that elite tier in terms of dynasty assets, and Malik Nabers is right there, right? And you mentioned things have sort of slowed down for him since that white hot start to the rookie season. A lot of that is the offense. He did miss some time. I think he missed 2 weeks with a concussion. Mm-hmm. But even though he's slowed down, just last week, he had his catching total brought him to 75 receptions in his first 10 games. It's actually a new Giants and a new NFL record for a rookie wide receiver in their first 10 games. He actually broke OBJ's record from 2014. So, while he's not putting up, 30 burgers on the regs like he was, he's still a very, very productive asset in a piss poor offense.
Yeah, and number 1 in expected fantasy points per game, but also second in unrealized air yards. So there's still more on the table. There's still more to have from here. We know the talent is there now. And I think if this is like as low as the floor is going to get, that feels great. And I still think he has the upside to be the wide receiver overall 1 or the wide receiver 1 overall in fantasy if he gets a decent quarterback calling plays under center. And I think it's going to be Cam Ward. So I hope Cam Ward is the real deal. Steve, your thoughts on Malik Nabers here? Do you think he should still be? I know he was your 101 coming into the season for as far as wide receiver, and I think he stays there for you as well.
Yeah, I'm not pivoting off of him. No one in this class has shown what Malik Nabers has shown, right? I mean, he is a game breaker. Like full on, he is an entire system in and of himself. This man is tracking to be a Hall of Fame level player in his rookie year. That's crazy.
He's breaking a lot of records. He's looking like the next coming of one. And, from LSU, the wide receiver factory continues. At the 104, I do have Marvin Harrison Jr. going. And it has been a little bit of a fall from grace, if we're being honest, with Marv this season. Only 41 receptions. That is tied with Rome Odunze, who's the third wide receiver on the Bears. There isn't a lot in this Arizona passing game outside of Trey McBride. So, like Marv should be eating more than he is. He is behind Ladd, McConkey, and Brian Thomas, and Nabers in receptions for rookies. Steve, you kind of question his ability to separate coming into the league, and I really pushed back hard on that. And he's currently 102nd among wide receivers in terms of target separation. Wide receiver 40 in fantasy points per game, wide receiver 25 overall. I just didn't think the floor could be this low. I just didn't. I had no idea. And I don't know if Drew Petzing is going anywhere anytime soon. So the 104 sounds about right. Eric, do you think we were just maybe a little too high on Marv and maybe we missed the boat here as a community?
I mean, I guess to an extent, right? Like we're still talking about who will be the second wide receiver off the board, even in this Redux rookie draft, right? So like, if you were expecting him to be the definitive 101 player and, have no weeks below 20 points, then yeah, you're probably disappointed, right? In the real world context of the fact that rookie drafts always have some uncertainty with them, looking at a guy that's, going to finish as, what would be the second wide receiver off the board and still put up a very productive season is a reasonable rate of return, right? The thing with him is he's been super streaky, right? Like a lot of times he'll get behind the defender, he'll have that big deep touchdown play, and then the following week he'll put up a 4 or 5 spot, which is, it's on track with how a lot of rookie receivers adapt to the league, right? Maybe he wasn't this kind of can't miss prospect, but I don't think he's having a bad year by any measure.
Yeah, I just thought he would eat more. I thought he would have more targets, and at least
I think he's having a bad year. I think he's having a bad year. Everyone told me was whenever I passed on this guy or I dared to criticize him, I was told he's a generational prospect, can't miss, gonna set the league on fire. Like, you're not even ready. You don't even know what you're talking about. You don't know ball. This guy's going to come out. He's going to be 110 catches. He's going to be 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns and blah, 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 blah. This guy can't fucking separate. This guy cannot fucking separate. Okay? Now, unless he's getting the Drake London treatment and getting force-fed the ball, which even that isn't working for the Falcons, this is not good. Guys who can't separate, I don't care what you did in college. I don't care.
He'll get better. He'll get better at it.
He'll get better, but he's 102nd. That's bad. That's notoriously bad. That's awful. And he's not built for a 50-50 ball. So he's not going to overpower defenders. He's not getting any faster. He's not getting, he needs to work on that footwork, and his footwork sucks. So unless he really turns it around and gets that short, little choppy area straightened out, he is never going to realize his potential or what we thought was his potential. He may wind up being a very high-end wide receiver too someday, but he is at a very high risk. Like, it's not like he has a dud quarterback either. Like, Malik Nabers is doing what he's doing, and he's running through Daniel Jones, Drew Lock.
More target competition, though, a little bit for Marv, I would argue.
For what? One guy?
Trey McBride.
You can't beat out Michael Wilson and James Conner. I mean, that's sad. That is sad. That's pathetic. Like, that's awful.
All right. I don't want to keep slandering Marv. We're going to keep it moving. Brock Bowers, Jayden Daniels, Malik Nabers, Marvin Harrison Jr. are those top 4. Still, like Eric said, top 4 pick in the rookie draft. Don't want to absolutely bury the guy, but it's been tough. It's been tough. If you drafted him 101, you're probably still drafting pretty high this year again. So congrats to you. Let's keep swinging here. What do you got at the 105, Steve?
I went with Caleb Williams, and that actually hurt to put down. I let me tell you, I was torn. I considered a few quarterbacks here, but because he's shown flashes of being that dude, I went with him. I think one thing that's going to happen is the Bears are going to get better next year, right? Their offense is going to look better. They're going to bring in an offensive guy, whether that's like Kingsbury or Ben Johnson or whoever. I've even heard John Gruden's name thrown out there. It will get better for Caleb Williams. I don't know if Caleb Williams is a great NFL quarterback, but I think he could be a really good fantasy quarterback.
He's not afraid to sling it around. You know, he kind of has a little bit of Jameis Winston in him where he's not, not afraid to throw a pick and then get right back in it. And that's how I feel about the Bears too, dude. Like they went through 10 games of Shane Waldron. I think it is going to get better for Caleb Williams. Maybe not the 101, the consensus we are looking at, but I think he'll be a fine NFL quarterback if he can continue to adjust and play in rhythm a little bit more, not lean on trying to be Superman down the stretch all the time. So, Eric, your thoughts on Caleb Williams and your pick at the 106?
Yeah, I like this pick for Caleb Williams, right? He should still be the second quarterback off the board. Honestly, I think you can make a bit of an argument for him as the first quarterback off the board, depending on kind of the texture and context of your team, right? Like if you are closer to making the jump to winning now, Jayden Daniels is a clear choice. If you have a little bit of a runway before you're competitive, maybe I would lean towards Caleb in that case. But either way, I think that the needle is pointing up now that Shane Waldron and Matt Eberflus are out of town. Honestly, I kind of like what Thomas Brown has been doing with this offense over the last few weeks. I'm curious to see him get a longer audition to remove that interim tag for next year. But my next pick here in the Superflex streets is none other than Drake Maye, a player who's only played a handful of games this year, but immediately made it apparent why he was at one point considered to be a potential 101 pick in the NFL draft before we went into that draft process. Guy comes in, has an absolute cannon for an arm. He is not afraid to uncork it. And oh, by the way, sneaky good wheels, right? He will absolutely pick his spots and leave players in the dust, just out there diving and trying to tackle at ghosts. The dude kind of has it all, right? Like there are pieces of Josh Allen's ability as a ball carrier. There are pieces of Justin Herbert's ability as a thrower of the football. Like there's a lot to be excited about with what Drake Maye offers, both for the New England faithful and for any dynasty managers who drafted him.
I'm riding him right now as my starting quarterback in like 3 leagues, and it hasn't been a terrible ride. Honestly, like he has the mobility. You walk out of the room, you walk back in. Drake Maye just scored you 4 points on a 40-yard dash like he did this past weekend. It's great. It's fun to watch, man. And I think he's another player, guys, that will probably only get better when we get some better weapons there in New England. Like he's throwing the ball out to Pop Douglas, Booty, like Hunter Henry and the boys. Like it's not great out there, but I think he'll continue to get better. And I also think your 107 pick also might continue to get better, but he's been a quarterback one this season. Who you got here?
Yeah, sticking with the quarterbacks, going with Bo Nix. I think you could kind of split hairs between these two in terms of which one goes ahead of the other. They're
Agreed.
Right there in that same overall grouping. Bo Nix is a bit more surprising though, right? Certainly more unheralded. Went early because quarterbacks go crazy early in the draft these days if you need one. But wasn't considered to be of the caliber of a Maye or Jayden Daniels or a Caleb Williams, but he's come in and they've done a great job playing to his strengths. He's done everything that they have asked of him, and he's uncorking it too, right? 34 pass attempts per game, almost number 3 in the league, number 1 in deep ball pass attempts, right? So he is willing to push the ball vertically, but he's also he's finding his spots, right? His accuracy rating is number 4 in the league. So usually those two stat lines are kind of incongruent, right? The guys that are going more vertical are typically less accurate. So the fact that he's coming in and he's managing to accomplish both is something that is, very, very exciting to think about how that projects forward. And another guy that maybe not quite as prolific as what we think Maye can give us, but another guy that can do a little bit with his feet too, right? He's got good size. He's got a good sense about how to avoid those big hits, right? So again, Denver's got to be feeling like they caught lightning in a bottle with this pick.
Yeah, dude, and that's what I was gonna say about his legs is because when we first brought him up on like the redraft portion of the show, like, hey, he's running around out there, he's getting you rushing yards, kind of almost what we were just talking about with Drake Maye, but really it's been as of late. He is uncorking it, dude. Like that was a crazy game Monday night. Oh my goodness. Like, this isn't the first time we've seen this from Bo Nix. Like, had a rough showing against Baltimore a couple weeks ago out in Maryland, but aside from that, he's really been showing up here in the fantasy streets, and he's been brilliant as of late. And like, accuracy isn't something you just lose. So yeah, maybe we were all sleeping on Bo Nix a little bit. I like the call a lot. Steve, let's go to your pick at the 108, my friend.
Yeah, so with my pick at the 108, I went with Brian Thomas Jr. For Jacksonville. Weirdly enough, his quarterback situation may well be up in the air in the not too distant future. But he is looking every bit like a wide receiver one for a team, right? He looks like he can dominate in a lot of different aspects of the game. You're giving me that look, Eric, but you know what? What has Trevor Lawrence shown the Jacksonville Jaguars that has indicated that they want to sign him to a massive deal? Nothing. He is not.
He already has it. He already has
it.
He already has a massive deal.
You don't think they'd ship that off? You don't think a team will take that?
I actually ain't.
You don't think this team, when this team decides to blow it up and fuck off to London, that they're not going to dump Trevor Lawrence's contract with it?
This man's
like the owner's got to make up for his failing wrestling company. You know what I mean? I mean, this shit that needs to go down.
Trevor Lawrence, come on. People like the AEW. Have a heart.
Yeah, all 12 of them. But anyway, we're here to talk about Brian Thomas Jr., a guy who's actually delivering on his draft prospect, because unlike Trevor Lawrence, this man is showing that he belongs as the number one receiver. He's got the speed to go vertical. He's got the route running to go into the intermediate and short game. And then he's a good run after the catch guy. He's a big kind of bodied. He's not like thick, but he's kind of tall. I think if he puts on a little more muscle, he'll really develop into something that's reminiscent of like a DK Metcalf in a way. And I think that's what you want out of your wide receiver one. You're muted.
Brian Thomas Jr. has been excellent, kind of slowed down the stretch a little bit. But Mac Jones, honestly, not a terrible game. But his best showing was off the bench here this past week. So, yeah, hopefully B-Tom can continue to keep rolling here. But I think he was a great value in drafts. He was kind of going around this 108 to I got him at the 112 in a couple places. So, Brian Thomas Jr., I like him there. I do think I like Ladd McConkey more at the 109, if I'm going to be honest with you guys. This feels a little low for Ladd McConkey. I think you could honestly start making the case for him up at the 104 with like Marvin Harrison Jr. He has been perhaps my favorite rookie wide receiver to watch just from a pure fun standpoint. The dude is a damn technician, number 2 in win rate versus man. So he is getting separation. He's also gritty as fuck. He was getting blown up the past 2 weeks and just kept going. Picked up a little bit of a knee injury this past week. We'll see what happens here as the week progresses. Our guy Deepak Chona out there on the Twitter streets and over at Fantasy Pros, not too concerned about it, sounds like. Wide receiver 16 on the season. Is he, and also wide receiver 29 points per game, second among rookie wide receivers in receptions and targets. That's why I think you could make the argument that he is the rookie wide receiver too. First in yards as well. He's on pace right now to go well over 1,000 yards as a rookie, even if he sits out here in week 14. And doesn't hurt that he's connected to Justin Herbert and a Chargers organization that is only having arrows point up with Jim Harbaugh at the helm. So, Eric, I'm real into Ladd McConkey. I think he's just smooth, man. He's pure. This guy's the real deal.
Yeah, I think he is too. And I say this as someone who sitting with the 108 in a rookie draft this year was making a decision between Ladd McConkey and Brian Thomas Jr. Chose Ladd McConkey and was feeling not super great about it through like 5 or 6 weeks of the season. But honestly, like, the difference between the two is really just floor and ceiling. Like, Ladd McConkey is far more likely to get you 7, 8, 9 catches for like 60 to 100-ish yards every week. But I don't know if he's got that, that 30 burger in his locker anywhere. But yeah, this game, this last one, even though he left early with that little bit of a knee issue, was his third 100 receiving yard game. I think that's tying puts him tied for second among the Chargers rookie record list. So
wow,
absolutely out there, just finding ways to get open. We knew that he was an elite route runner and fantastic at creating separation. And when you're able to do that and that translates to the NFL level, quarterbacks kind of look your way, right? Like all you have to do is just track Justin Herbert's passer rating based on who he is targeting, and it's pretty clear that he is going to go to the guy that's going to put him in the best position every single time.
Agreed. 100% agreed. Looking at the 110, I'm going Rome Odunze, wide receiver for the Chicago Bears. Look, he's another one that I think people are thinking, hey, maybe this has kind of been disappointing, but it's kind of what you signed up for at the same time, knowing Keenan Allen was there, knowing Caleb Williams was a rookie, knowing Shane Waldron was going to be the one calling plays out there in the Windy City as well. But still, Rome on pace for 107 targets, 58 receptions, over 750 yards, fifth among rookie wide receivers in terms of targets, receptions, and yards. And that was with Shane Waldron calling plays for 10 games. Keenan Allen there. Keenan's on the last year of his deal. He'll probably be out of town. I think Rome is still a great buy low target right now and can continue to get better as Caleb Williams progresses. And it kind of just shows how I know there isn't depth in this class as we're seeing that kind of play out as of now, but the top end is loaded that you could get Rome at the 110 if we are redrafting today. I actually have an offer in my inbox right now. Maybe you guys can help me. I have Brian Thomas Jr. and I was offered Rome Odunze straight up. I don't think I can do it. Steve, you're saying no for you?
No. Rome Odunze has the same problem that Marvin Harrison Jr. has. He can't separate. Problem is he's not as elite of an athlete as Marvin Harrison Jr. So I don't think I would do that. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is the superior talent overall.
What do you think, Steve? Because Rome was regarded as some as like, hey, he would be the wide receiver one in most classes. Brian Thomas Jr. did just have the one season at LSU, the 17 touchdowns that really lofted him up into first round consideration in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I think that's fine, but Rome Odunze was good. Like, I don't think he really set the world on fire at Washington. Like, he was really good. He just didn't. I thought he was cool. Like, he made some cool catches. He made some cool plays. I just never looked at him as like an elite prospect. And I thought the Bears kind of put a hat on a hat when they drafted him. And like, they had so many other issues. This just isn't the kind of guy. He's
what
just
do you
not
think,
the kind
Eric?
of guy that's going to dominate.
What do you think, Eric? Should I accept that trade?
We
have Brian Thomas.
I probably wouldn't accept that trade either. I guess in a vacuum, I mean they're right next to each other. I'm a bit more bullish on Rome Odunze than it sounds like Steve is, but Brian Thomas Jr. The issue with him is exactly what you alluded to. We had a small sample size at the collegiate level. We had one season of him looking very, very good. He's already shown that a lot of that has translated to the NFL level with average, maybe slightly above average quarterback play, right? So I think that kind of answers the biggest question that dragged down Brian Thomas Jr. And while Keenan Allen is going to be heading out of town, presumably next year, DJ Moore's still going to be hanging around for a while, right? They gave him a lot of money this offseason. So, for me, it's really just a matter of like, who's the guy that I think is going to be the clear wide receiver one on their team.
True.
Brian Thomas Jr. has
point.
the path to
Good
that,
point.
whereas Rome Odunze, if nothing else, like best case scenario, he's going to have to battle that out.
I think Christian Kirk's contract is up after this season as well.
Oh, that doesn't fucking matter. Who cares?
Yeah.
Well,
guys completely cooked either way.
Okay, well, it mattered at one point. He was a dog. Steve, what do you got at the 111?
At the 111, I'm taking the deal of deals here. I'm taking Bucky Irving, who has shown that he is this ridiculous little explosive, like crazy kind of player. And weirdly enough, our first running back off the board,
Bucky Irving. I got a lot of people got
the 111. How
yeah.
strange things have gotten in fantasy football world that in a rookie draft, the first running back goes at the 11th pick. But Bucky Irving is showing that he's not only a 3-down back, but he's elite at like every aspect of the game. And you know what? I'll own what I have to own. I didn't see it. Out of him. I was like, who the fuck is this guy that is turning Rachaad White, who was a fantasy stud last year, into absolute nothingness? I mean, that's crazy to me that this guy showed up and was like, I am so superior. It's ridiculous.
Bucky Irving was one of those fun ones that if you watched him at Oregon, like he was a great player. He really was. But then came in the combine, didn't perform the best at the combine. Everyone was expecting. I mean, he was the favorite at a lot of shops to run the fastest 40. He did not come anywhere close to that. That kind of dropped his stock a little bit. Didn't look great overall that weekend in Indianapolis. Falls down the board and it has been great. Eric, do you like Bucky Irving better or who you have the 112 have?
No, I like Bucky Irving much better. I was disappointed that he was not available to me at the 112. And it appears that Tampa Bay would agree, right? We look back to just last week, and there was really that, that monumental shift in terms of opportunity share, where this is now Bucky Irving's backfield.
Over 150 total yards. Dude was carving it up.
Yeah, and look, he's had those explosives all year, right? He's put up some crazy yardage throughout the season, but the usage is the thing to track here, right? Like, this was the week where it shifted, where he was the feature back and Rachaad White and to a lesser extent Tucker were the complementary pieces, right? So I think we're going to see that carry forward for a Tampa Bay team that at least has aspirations to try to, keep themselves in the playoff mix down the stretch. The player that you alluded to that I will take as my consolation prize at the 112 is Tyrone Tracy, someone that I threw shade at you and your home league for not drafting back in April. One of my
took Bucky Irving instead.
Yeah, I mean, you could have had both and just won this league, right? Tyrone Tracy, one of my highest exposed players in best ball, hasn't exactly set the world on fire, right? Much more of like kind of a baseline high floor type of play, getting you into double digits pretty routinely. But a player that's adjusting, making the transition over from a wide receiver into the running back role, and is showing to be pretty capable in that regard, right? He's doing a good job at reading the opposing defense, at finding the hole and hitting it and bursting through it. And honestly, the thing that gets me most excited about the prospects of Tyrone Tracy going forward is, despite being a converted wide receiver, they don't really throw to him all that much. He's out here with like just a handful of receptions on the year, 24, and the Giants as an organization are near the bottom of the league. Only 15% of their targets have gone to running back. So we think about a world where, that percentage goes up to closer to the league average, right? 18, 20, 21%. Tyrone Tracy could be a PPR monster for us in the future.
The only thing I worry about with Tyrone Tracy, which I guess you can worry about with a lot of running backs, is 5th round pick, doesn't have a ton of draft capital, wasn't a high profile guy really coming out of Purdue there as well. But I just worry with one of the best running back classes we've seen in a long time. I don't know what happens here. I think Joe Shane is sticking around at general manager. I have no fucking clue, though. I mean, this is the same guy that let Saquon Barkley roll out of town, and the number one thing the owner said was, I couldn't sleep if he was, in an Eagles jersey, and he is. So I think Joe Shane might be out. I think Dable might be out. And then what's stopping a new regime for coming to replace Tracy? That's my only concern, I guess.
They have so many other holes that they have to address before the running back position. There's no way they're going to address that with an early pick. There's just not. Their offensive line is Swiss cheese. They don't have a quarterback whatsoever. Their defense is abysmal. There's so many other holes they have to plug before they even come close to looking at the running back position. The problem I have with Tracy is actually what makes me love him is that he's very Antonio Gibson-esque, where he's a converted wide receiver, can run very well, but he's got that fumbling bug that a lot of wide receivers converted to running backs seem to have. And I hope he figures it out, and I hope they give him time to figure it out, because he is turning into what Antonio Gibson was his first 2 years in Washington.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Aiden's asking in the chat, what's up, Aiden? Saying, is name value overrated in fantasy?
Yes.
I mean, it definitely is, but name value can, it can
take advantage of it.
Yeah, you can get trade value. Like, name value has something, and I think still even though people are disappointing and you couldn't get as much as you could have earlier in the season for a lot of these players we're talking about, they still have, some of them like Marv still has a lot of name values. It's still going to be hard to pry him from someone who spent the 101 or close to it. So yeah, what do you think, Eric? What do you think for Aiden here?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And like you have to think about it like, fantasy is a game that you play against 11 or 13 or 9 other people if you're a sicko and you're in these short leagues. But it's a marketplace, right? Like, people have different valuations of these assets, and part of what goes into that for many is, who this person was touted to be, how recognizable their name was. So it certainly plays a large role. And to your point, like, it's something that you can take advantage of, right? Like if you just start doing these kind of like blind player comparison type of analysis and remove the name from the player altogether, you can find some lanes to where you can take advantage of your league mates by taking by leveraging that name value that tends to linger a little bit longer than it should.
Agreed with you there. Running back through the first round, we got Brock Bowers going first. We got Jayden Daniels going off the board at the 102. Malik Nabers, Marvin Harrison Jr., Caleb Williams to the 105, Drake Maye, Bo Nix, and then a ring of wide receivers, Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey, Rome Odunze, Bucky Irving, Tyrone Tracy, the running backs rounding us out. That is our first round. Let us know down in the chat or in the comments after the video as well what your guys' thoughts are. If we got some right, if we got some wrong, what you would change up in this first round. We're going to be doing rapid fire in the second round, so we're going to go through these pretty quickly here. And Eric, back to you with the 201. Who you got going off the board?
Yeah, so this one was particularly fun because I got to steal it away from our boy Steve Lawson. Keon Coleman, you mentioned that you thought he was a bit of a disappointment this year, and Steve correctly adjusted your perspective and reminded you that Keon Coleman has missed a fair amount of time this season. When he's out there, he's absolutely explosive. He's number 9 in player profiles, explosive rating overall.
Wow.
The dude is just generating yards after the catch. He's shown to be effective, running the ball or catching the ball deep downfield. And more importantly, it seems like he can actually come down with these contested catches. That was the thing that had him plummeting down draft boards heading into April. If you go back to like this time last year, even, he was in the conversation of one of the top 2 or 3 receivers to come off the board. And then this contested catch thing became a narrative, right? Much like name value, and people just cling on to it. But, through the handful of games he's been able to play, he's actually been able to win those contested catches. And if that question mark wasn't there from a skill and talent standpoint, has absolutely everything that you're looking for in an alpha receiver, and is, while Amari Cooper's still hanging around, going to be the alpha in this Bills offense, right? That contract is one that the Bills could shed pretty readily, and we could be looking at a world where you've got the primary pass catching option for the Josh Allen offense as soon as next year at the beginning of the second round.
201, I'll take it. Steve, what do you got at the 202?
Yeah, it hurts to see Keon Coleman go ahead of me and get sniped, but I went with my Florida State guy anyway. Dynasty's a waiting game, and I'm willing to wait on Trey Benson. He is looking like he's getting it going here in the NFL at the NFL level. He's looking explosive. He's figured out that he's a north-south runner. He's so fast. When he gets to the second level, that's when he can start trying to go a little east and west. I am 100% in on Trey Benson going forward.
Did James Conner get a new contract, or was that a fever dream?
He did. It was a 2-year deal.
Oh,
not worried about it.
See,
not worried about it. Not worried about it.
I am.
Not worried about it. He's turning into a pumpkin before our very eyes. He sucks. Get out of here with that.
So you don't give a contract extension to someone who sucks like that.
Sure,
so
you do if you're the Cardinals.
Well,
not exactly the picture of organizational health there are the Cardinals. And taking a closer look at that contract, it's much closer to like Josh Jacobs' contract than what Chuba Hubbard got out of the Panthers, right? Like the Panthers invested in Chuba Hubbard as their near to mid-term running back. James Conner kind of got like an attaboy. He got a lot of money on the front end. They can readily get away from that deal with a pretty minimal impact on their salary cap as soon as next year, which is also the case for Josh Jacobs, right? People want to talk about how big that deal was. Green Bay can kind of get off the hook next year, right? So there's some contract magic at play with that one.
Yeah, for me, it says, especially with the usage that we've seen from Benson and kind of the lack of, I was projecting him closer to 120, 130 carries. Yeah. And with the lack of usage and that contract extension, it just shows me I don't think he's ready. So I would much rather prefer my 203, Xavier Worthy. I think it is still becoming clear that Rashee Rice is the Chiefs wide receiver 1 again in 2025. Worthy will be a great flanker. I think, but I don't think he'll ever be the absolute stud we thought he could maybe be. The good, I think, with Xavier Worthy, 6 total touchdowns. That's 9th among all wide receivers. So he could be a guy who's scoring 8 to 10 touchdowns annually. I just think he's closer to Jordan Addison as a fantasy producer than someone like people were comping him to early career Tyreek Hill. It's a great offense, but I just think he's, a little boomer bust here. And I still think he's a decent sleeper coming down the stretch to score double digits in three straight games coming in. But I just think he's closer to a boom bust wide receiver than, ever a stable producer, as long as, Travis Kelce's there. And who knows, Noah Gray might be the guy. Oh, or could you imagine if they got Tyler Warren in that offense? Oh,
they should get Ashton Cheap.
You and your Big Ten tight ends. I know we're trying to go fast here. I want to put a pin on this for a future conversation. Are the Chiefs bad at drafting wide receivers?
Yes.
It seems like every time that they swing for a quote unquote premier guy, it doesn't really go all that well, right? Like
other than Rashee Rice, right?
Rashee Rice is certainly their best hit, right? But like, seems like they're more of a volume shooter trying to see what sticks.
Yeah, the little shotgun approach there.
Yeah, I think he could be much more of a John Ross than a Tyreek Hill.
I think he's better than John Ross ever was. But
is he, or is he just in a better situation?
Touche. At the 204, I'm going JJ McCarthy, quarterback for the Vikings. Bummer that it's pretty much a lost season for McCarthy, and that Sam Darnold is playing so well right now. He might come back for another bridge season, be the starter most of 2025. Still, Darnold's success tells me, while he's on pace for 33 touchdowns and quarterback 8 in fantasy, that McCarthy, if he's just 75% of the prospect we thought he would be, he's going to have fantasy value. So I'm in on JJ McCarthy. Getting him in the 204 sounds great. I'm actually going to be shopping, I think, some 2025 rookie picks. Once, if drafts come around, I'm sitting there in the second round, it doesn't fall to me, I'm going to be shopping for JJ McCarthy shares. That's for certain, boys. I'm back in. Steve, what do you got at the 205?
At the 205, I went with Ricky Pearsall. I think I like what I see out of him. I hate to say it, I think this is Debo's swan song kind of coming up here. I think we're going to see the end of Debo Samuel in San Francisco, if not like next year, then the year after. Again, at the second round, this is a waiting game. It's Dynasty. You gotta be patient with these picks. This guy has shown flashes. Give him time. He'll be all right. He's got the skills. He's got the system. I as much as people are calling for Shanahan's head right now, I don't think those 49ers are that stupid of an organization to fire him. I think this is where I would take Ricky Pearsall at this point.
Okay. Eric, really no equity built up on Pearsall. He's a guy you're kind of taking right in this 205 range. So not a big mover, but not a big loser either. I think same can be said for your 206 pick.
Yeah, my 206 pick, Mr. Asparagus himself, Xavier Legette. Still ranks as one of the best like size speed prospects coming in from this year's class. Was saddled into this Carolina offense that is going to struggle to support wide receivers, but his play on the field has shown a lot of promising glimpses, right? It seems like he's getting a better understanding of his route tree and how to create separation through his route running. He's obviously a physical monster that can high point a ball, that can create yards after the catch. Whether it's by way of a better quarterback coming in or Bryce Young continuing to see his play improve down the stretch run, I think that we're going to be talking about Xavier Legette as a very interesting fantasy piece as soon as next year.
He was raw. Coming in. We all knew that.
And he's been solid. Like he's been honestly very, very solid. I'm excited to see what it can be down the stretch, his production, now that Adam Thielen's finally getting back to full health. But I do like what we're seeing out of Legette, and he's another person like falling to the 206. I feel good about the 206, but is the cliff coming after 207, you think, Eric? And who do you have there?
Yeah, so at 207, a player that I think has no business being down here, right? Someone that was going largely much earlier than this when we were actually doing rookie drafts back in the spring and the summer. Michael Penix Jr., someone that we might actually see down the stretch run here, right? Currently, if you remove the dropbacks minimum, PFF's highest rated passer in the league this year, Michael Penix Jr. Obviously has a lot more proving to do, but there's a world where the Falcons are trying to compete for this division and they give him a little bit more run, and he's obviously a very talented distributor of the football and walk into an offense that has no shortage of weapons. So to get a guy that could be starting this year or potentially as soon as next year, more than midway through the second round of a Superflex draft is always great value.
Kirk Cousins didn't look like he gave a flying fuck on Sunday, man. That was wild.
Chains.
Yeah,
dude got that bag and was like, all right, I'll do the thing for a little bit and then I'll just mail it in.
You can't count on guys who are coming off torn Achilles like that. Yeah. Not at that age.
It's a tough scene because we've seen him play really good down the stretch. He gutted out a couple gutsy wins early in the season against Philadelphia and a couple in prime time there, but it slowed back down a little bit. His mobility is limiting him some, it seems like, but I'm excited to see what Penix can do. I know if they eventually do lose this division, maybe we do see Penix for a game or two.
I don't know why they're not going to it now. It makes no sense. They're not Super Bowl contenders. Why not just fucking see what you got?
It's tough. It's a tough situation. Optics are very tough in the locker room. Kirk has the locker room, I'm sure. So tough situation there, but I like the picks of Penix. I feel like we get to a bit of a teardrop here. Steve, who are you going with at 208?
Yeah, I'm going with the second tight end off the board. I'm going Theo Johnson. There are guys that I think maybe are sexier picks, but this guy has looks like he's figuring it out a bit. And when he catches the ball, when he gets the ball in his hands, he's pretty explosive with it. I like what I see out of him. So I think he has the opportunity to maybe be that tight end that we talk about a year from now, 2 years from now, that we're like, oh damn, I think we were off on him, waiting that long to get him. He's got some explosiveness to him that I really, really, really like.
Theo Johnson, former Penn State Nittany Lion, went undrafted in a lot of rookie drafts, shot up the NFL draft board. So after one of the best combine performances, if not the best combine performance we've ever seen from a collegiate tight end. So a lot to like about Theo Johnson. I called him out as my in the scope target last week, waivers a week early, and he ends up getting hurt, puts up 10 points, gets hurt, going to be on IR. So I don't know if we'll see Theo Johnson again, but good rookie season for him. He was really taking over the second pass catching option role in that team. So excited to see what we can see next season from him. And Cam Ward really knew how to use his tight ends down in Miami. So if Cam Ward ends up there in New York, I would definitely be happy with that. Going to the 209 for me, it's Jonathon Brooks. I still really like the prospect. But who would have thought that Chuba Hubbard would have such a great season? RB13 on the year, get a contract extension. That changes everything, right? I mean, not only does it hurt that Brooks already kind of lost his entire season, wasn't active until week 12, but now he has Chuba there for the long haul. It was at least not nice to see him get 9 touches this past week, including 3 targets. So that was great. They're just kind of a tough scene there, I think, for Jonathon Brooks. At the 210, I got Blake Corum as well. Just unreal to me that the Rams would use a day 2 pick on this guy and give him 37 fucking carries. 37 fucking carries through 12 games, 8 of which came this past week. So he had 29 in the first 11 games. Just incredible. I still believe in this prospect as well, even as much as Jonathon Brooks. 2,900 total yards, 47 combined touchdowns the past 2 years at Michigan. We've seen how much they miss him. There's times they can't run the ball. They got guys in the backfield like Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullins, but Blake Corum's really good, man. I'm still going to be shooting buy low offers. Kyren Williams' volume has subsided down the stretch. We'll kind of see what happens this offseason. He does have one more year on his rookie deal. But I think he might be calling for a new contract, Eric, after seeing likely over 300 touches to end the season. Your thought on Blake Corum and Jonathon Brooks and kind of just the pending Kyren Williams situation?
Yeah, Jonathon Brooks was great value. I was frustrated that I didn't have that same idea myself. Right? Like I mentioned when we were looking at the board, like this is the part of the draft where you're speculating, right? You're looking for guys that you hope will hit. And if Jonathon Brooks hits, even to a fraction of what we were expecting out of him, you got great value there. I love this Blake Corum call, right? Like, two things at play here. We've talked about it ad nauseum because you stand so hard for Blake Corum throughout the course of the offseason. But Sean McVay runs the tread off of the tires of his running backs. So whether it's down the stretch run here, which we saw a surprisingly high number of touches for him last week, that kind of caught me off guard, or even just heading into next year, right? Like, they're going to make the switch to Blake Corum at some point, and when they do, he is going to get all of the work for somewhere between 10 and 20 games, right? And that can absolutely vault a dynasty team to a championship. So I love getting him here at the end of the second round. I love floating buy low offers out there because people are going to be so frustrated with what they drafted him to be compared to what they got. So you can definitely squeeze some value out of him in the trade market.
Back on my bullshit with the Big Ten running backs, baby. Just like I had faith in Chase Brown last year, I'm keeping it here with Blake Corum at the 210. Steve, what do you got last pick for you at the 211?
I took another rookie running back, Ray Davis. This is, again, a long shot, but you know what? He looks good. When he gets his opportunities, he looks good. And I'm curious if Joe Brady will be gone after this season.
What do you mean? It's the best Bills offense has ever looked.
I completely agree. I believe Joe Brady may
you
well
think
see
it's
himself being at the helm of a team next year. You want a young, brilliant offensive mind. Why not turn to Joe Brady? Right? Like, after Ben Johnson and maybe Cliff Kingsbury, I don't think there's a better offensive coordinator on the market right now.
College teams could come calling for him as well. He as he has experience down there as at LSU with the boys.
There's a lot of ways he could go. I'm sure someone
I didn't even think about that. Oh shit.
The keys to the kingdom. And I don't James Cook is not a bell cow running back. We're seeing that, right? Like, he's not getting like a ridiculous amount of touches. A lot of times we're seeing him in the single digits of touches, but he's getting very high touchdown rates. Ray Davis started one game, went for like 150 like total yards or something crazy like that. Like, he's legit. So I'm willing to take that flyer on him.
I like Ray Davis. He's one of my favorite sleepers in rookie drafts. I've got a lot of shares across all my best balls as well. So it hasn't been great over in those streets, but I do like Ray Davis. Eric, round us out here, the 212.
Yeah, this is going to feel like a bit of a cop-out because he is also the poster child of the waiver wire run for this week. But even in absence of that, would happily go Isaac Guerendo of the available options as the last pick in the second round, if for no other reason that he has been and continues to be the heir apparent to Christian McCaffrey in a Kyle Shanahan offense, right? We've seen the absolute worst possible outcome for Christian McCaffrey come to pass this year. But even if he played an entirely healthy season this year, talking about who is going to be the next one to step up if Father Time catches up, if Christian McCaffrey ever gets hurt again, it was clearly going to be Isaac Guerendo. He got that opportunity earlier than we thought and absolutely exploded with it, right? Had a 99-yard game, got up over 100 yards in his other game. Actually, the highest rated rookie running back this year in terms of athleticism score coming out of the combine. So we know that the dude is an absolute burner. He can do a lot with a few number of touches. And now we're going to get an extended audition of him being the guy for the rest of the regular season.
Yeah, I hit that 16-1 on him at the combine, fastest 40. So, make sure you guys are hanging around for combine season. We'll be sure to get back in those betting streets. That's a fun one. But Isaac Guerendo, fun character in college. He was another Big Ten back for a while, ends up transferring from Wisconsin, goes out to Louisville, was really sharing that backfield with Jarhair Jordan. And they're both kind of similar players, speed merchants really. And Guerendo kind of got overshadowed at times, but I was glad he had the big performance in Indianapolis. He got himself on a roster, and now he has the opportunity from him, right? What can you do, Guerendo? Can you be a guy who can carry a little bit of bulk work here? That's always been the one thing. He's always been a guy, whether it was with Braylon Allen back in Wisconsin or Jordan down in Louisville, who's always had a little bit of a 1A to 1B, a thunder to a lightning situation. So excited to see what Isaac Guerendo can do. I love that pick. I'll run back through the second round one time. It's Keon Coleman at the 201, Trey Benson at the 202, Xavier Worthy at the 203, JJ McCarthy 204, Ricky Pearsall at that 205, Xavier Legette 206, Michael Penix Jr. for the Falcons at the 207, Theo Johnson, Jonathon Brooks, Blake Corum, Ray Davis, and Isaac Guerendo. Let us know down in the chat. Let us know down in the comments below as well. Where do we go right? Where do we go wrong with our rookie draft? We want to know. I appreciate everyone tuning in for that part of the show. We got Tyler hanging out with us in the chat. What's up, Tyler? Good to see you, brother. We're going to shift back to a little more redraft focus and talk waivers a week early within the scope.
I have the targets in my sights.
Requesting permission to engage.
In the scope.
All right, in the scope, this is waivers a week early. We try to get a week ahead of the waiver wire because, hey, we might not have any fab left. Or if you've been watching this segment all year, you've been saving that fab. So you got in the back pocket, keeping it for that stretch run. I do want to talk about some of the mainstream waiver wire targets quickly before we get into some of our in the scope targets. Drake Maye, Caleb Williams, Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford, all out there on the block right now. If you need a quarterback, Steve, one word, who you got? Who's your favorite?
Drake Maye.
I'm Maye as well. He's on bye this week, so I do like Williams if I need a one start. But do you go the same, Eric, or is it Russ for you?
I'd probably go Drake Maye as well. Right, the rushing floor is just too hard to pass up when you're talking about this caliber of quarterback. If it weren't for an absolutely brutal schedule down the stretch, I can make a pretty solid argument for Russell Wilson. The dude just continues to throw to the end zone. Like if he played all 17 games this year, he would break records in terms of end zone throws, and like those are so critical for creating fantasy points.
Steve, you and I, egg on our face, man. Russ has been the real deal. So thank you, Russ. I'm not Kyle, get your couch ready for February. I'll be out there for the Super Bowl parade, my friend. I hope you get that ready for me out there. I'd appreciate that, man. Please stock the fridge with some icy light for me as well.
Couch is always ready for you, Jim, and the fridge is always stocked with icy light. You don't even have to ask.
Appreciate it. At the running back position for the mainstream targets, Isaac Guerendo, who Eric just mentioned, Amir Abdullah, Sincere McCormick, Jeremy McNichols. I know we like McNichols. We like Guerendo moving forward here. Looking at the Raiders backfield, Eric, are you investing any type of capital if you have any left in McCormick or Abdullah? Because we might have Alexander Madison and Zamir White coming back, complicating this backfield, or is this like, hey, if you have them already, keep riding them, but not really any use expending up for McCormick? I believe former UTSA, is that where McCormick was? I got to double check that. But I think he was a UTSA guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put in bids on both of them, right? But not investing in any sort of meaningful way, right? Like, to his credit, McCormick has looked like the more explosive of the kind of third stringers here on this team, but still a practice squatter, right? Like he is back on the practice squad right now. They may or may not elevate him again for this upcoming week. I think if they do, that'll be the point where he has to remain on the active roster going forward. Abdullah has been serviceable, here as the next man up, but honestly, I think we could see Alexander Madison back as soon as this week, and both those guys immediately turn back into pumpkins.
I was right. UTSA Roadrunner. So
meet.
Good job.
Kind of reminds me of like a Zonovan Knight situation, Bam Knight from a couple years ago, where if maybe we had an extended runway, McCormick could be something, but I don't think we're going to get that extended runway. Looking at the wide receiver mainstream targets, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. This is a guy we've talked about quite a few times. I mean, it's uncanny. I mean, what does he have? Like 24 of 25 receptions on the season. He has 8 touchdowns, something insane. It is legit, like just mayhem out there. So Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, Xavier Legette, Demario Douglas, Adam Thielen back on this list. Marquise Valdes-Scantling catching bombs as well. Elijah Moore, Devon Bailey. I still got a little hope for him. Kind of a stinker this past week. Noah Brown on this list as well. Eric, is this just like the season of like the fucking grip it and rip it type of wide receivers down the stretch, like MBS, the fucking Akines?
God, like Jesse Pinkman, you can't keep getting away with this meme personified. Like both of these dudes are just catching nothing but touchdowns. 40% of Nick Westbrook-Akine's receptions this year have been touchdowns. 8 touchdowns, 20 receptions. It's absolutely insane. And MVS is right up there with him in terms of touchdown rate. What I will say, because I'll try to be fair to Nick Westbrook-Akine, I've been hating on him and every microphone I've been in front of and every article I've written.
You fucking asshole.
Last week, all of a sudden, he got 8 targets, right? Prior to that, he was kind of floating around that like 4 to 6 range pretty consistently. Now, if we're going to see him get a little bit more usage as opposed to just catching touchdowns, got a little bit of interest here. I wouldn't break the bank on him by any means.
Oh, I would.
Probably the most reasonable acquisition out of all these guys is Elijah Moore. I think he's got a much safer floor, and he's got the skill set to bring a little bit of upside too.
Steve, your favorite wide receiver on the mainstream list?
Elijah Moore. Give me anyone attached to Jameis Winston at this point. Jameis is playing with a bigger fucking attitude than we've ever seen him play with before, and it is an absolute joy to watch. There is no quarterback more fun to watch in the NFL right now than Jameis Winston.
I hate to compare it to NASCAR, but this reminds me of a season where Michael McDowell and AJ Allmendinger, they didn't have much to drive for towards the end of it. They didn't know if they were going to be back for the next year. Their contract was expiring, and they just went out there and fucking won races. You know what I mean? They just said, fuck it. And I feel like this is a similar situation to Jameis Winston. Like, he has no idea. He has no idea when the next the next starting gig is ever going to come. So he's going to fucking ball, man.
It'll be next year.
Why are you out here reaching for these obscure NASCAR comps when Joe Flacco is just sitting right there? It's the exact same situation from a year ago.
True. Yeah. Between JSN, NWI, and MVS, the hyphenated names have some sort of touchdown superpowers. Yeah. I wish JSN could catch all those fucking touchdowns, though, that fucking these fuckers are. Holy cow. All right. Mainstream tight end targets: Pat Freiermuth, Noah Gray, Dawson Knox. Old Patty Freiermuth coming back around. Give me some Muth. Give me some Noah Gray. Those are my favorites on this list. I think sealed and delivered. Anyone want to make?
Well, yeah, you picked 2 out of the 3 list. I mean, what the fuck do you mean?
Well, I'm not that interested in Dawson Knox anymore.
Like, you came up, you put out the list, and then give me 2 out of the 3 of them. Like, what else are we supposed to say? What are we supposed to add to that?
When looking at this list, I like the people on the list.
When I'm looking at this, when I'm looking at this list, I am inclined to agree with you that yes, 3 of them belong on this list. What the fuck am I supposed to say?
I will pick one of them and say Noah Gray is the choice. Obviously, had the back-to-back 2 touchdown games, which are insane. But last week, 6 targets, right?
We talked about it. He's like the fourth. Yeah, he's like the fourth receiving option.
He's getting in the mix a little bit more for a team that is very needy for pass catchers. So don't mind speculating with him out of these 3.
Yeah, I love you, Noah Gray, but I wouldn't mind these Big Ten tight ends getting up there too. We got a lot of.
Didn't you force a third one to them when we were talking about the Chiefs earlier?
Listen, they're not in the Big Ten, but Bowling Green, they've got a fucking weapon out there at tight end as well. So
Jesus Christ, if these people have ever existed in the Ohio, Pennsylvania area, that's they are the sleeper of sleepers. It's like, did you know that Dawson Knox has a third cousin who went to Ohio State High School? Elite,
hey, buddy. Elite, baby. Hey,
dude's got a type.
Ray's different out here. Fucking Permane sandwiches and fucking Iron City Light, baby. All right, let's get to in the scope targets. These are the guys you can get after waivers run. You don't have to spend really any fab on them. No one's probably thinking about them. I'm kicking it over to you first, Steven. What do you got?
I went with Sterling Shepard. I can't get off that train. I can't get enough. I'm ready to be hurt again. So listen, he's doing what I thought he'd do. Nothing exciting, but he catches a touchdown and he delivers a pretty solid fantasy week for you. It's not going to be sexy. The time has passed him by, but there's no one else really there besides Mike Evans. So it's Bucky Irving, it's Sterling Shepard, it's Mike Evans, and that's really the offense. So go get him.
I just can't. It's hard for me to trust him just because he wasn't showing up as much as I wanted him to without Mike Evans there for a while. Cade Otton's seen his first-rate target share dip dramatically there. So I have a hard time trusting anyone outside of really Bucky and Mike Evans down the stretch. And if you want to keep rolling out Cade Otton and
listen, if you're this late in the year and you're trying to grab a free waiver target, it's not going to be pretty. Like I don't got much for you.
All right. Well, I got a wide receiver sticking at the position that I would like a little bit better. Ray McCloud, anyone? Atlanta Falcons roster.
Well, I would have happily picked Ray McCloud, but you picked him before me, didn't you?
Hey,
so I'm not.
I gave you until about this afternoon. I was waiting. I always try to be a little courtesy to my friends here on the program, but not this week because
trying to do my fucking day job, and Seth's like,
well. Yeah, that's the courtesy from working from home and ripping it all the time, boys. But listen, there's a lot of buys coming up here and this week, and the Falcons get the Vikings. That is the best overall matchup for opposing wide receivers. I always thought Ray McCloud was just more of like a punt return man, a gadget player. Is that's really the role he played in Pittsburgh a couple years ago when he popped up on the scene. And now, like, we've seen him actually kind of transform into a pretty scrappy slot wide receiver, setting new career highs across the board, whether that's touchdowns, receiving yards, targets, already been breaking his records. Wide receiver 28 finished this past week, also set a new career high in receiving yards with 95. Since week 9, double-digit points per reception points in 3 out of the 4 games. Wide receiver 43 on a points per game basis. So back-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 4 is kind of what you're looking at here. Middle of the road, rest of season, strength of schedule, courtesy of Fantasy Pros there for wide receivers. But bottom line is Falcons defense is cheeks. So I expect Kirk Cousins to continue slinging it around the yard. He obviously doesn't give a fuck. He's a little bit on a Jameis bender right now too. And if worse comes to worse and we see Michael Penix in, who doesn't like their slot wide receivers, a rookie? So, we've seen it, whether it's been Vele with Denver, whether it's been Demario Pop Douglas up there with Drake Maye, they lean on their slot guys. So, yeah, give me a little Ray McCloud here. Eric, your thoughts on Ray and who's your in the scope target this week?
Yeah, I like it a lot, right? If we talk about Kirk Cousins having a hard time letting plays develop or having the strength off of that plant foot to throw the ball down the field, there's Ray in the slot, and that the same thing is largely there if they do switch over to the rookie. I refuse to be gaslit that you are a gracious host in terms of this show sheet, because I've yet to see a show sheet sent over that doesn't already have your in the scope pick already listed in there.
Yeah,
so don't let this man gallivant as something that he is not. But I digress. My in the scope pick is someone that we detailed how much this dude was just getting dogged on over the course of the offseason and the regular season. Kendre Miller set to be activated off of IR here, and seemingly out of nowhere, Darren Rizzi, the Rizzler, came out and loved this dude up. Like, made it a point in his press availability to talk about how much of a role they think this guy can have and how optimistic they are for him. Obviously, we're talking about a speculative ad heading into week 14 of the NFL season. So we're going to be kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, but the coach seems to be bought in on getting this kid some opportunity. And we're talking about a Saints offense that is completely bereft of talent all of a sudden, right? Obviously, Alvin Kamara's there, but you've got Chris Olave still on IR with his concussion issue. We've got Taysom Hill heading to IR after last week. So, there could be a world where whenever they decide to activate him, they're going to need him just as another place to distribute the ball to.
Yeah, with no Taysom, and I think was it almost like, do you think a shot at the former head coach to come out and grease up Kendre Miller? Because how many times we see Dennis Allen just putting this guy in the fucking doghouse?
Yeah. If you can go out there and take your predecessor's trash and turn it into treasure, all the better for you. It is absolutely.
Yeah. I've never seen anything like what Dennis Allen.
He hated that man on so hard.
I don't know. This man must have slept with his wife. If this guy didn't straight up fuck his wife, this was the most out of pocket response I've ever seen in my life.
I've never been a Kendre Miller guy. I've always thought he's kind of just a mediocre back, but I would never I mean, he dogged him like how Steve was dogging Marvin Harrison Jr. earlier on the show. It was not great, and he was part of the organization that drafted him. So yeah, it goes a long way there, and great in the scope candidates there, guys. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna round out the show with some from the forum. If you guys have any questions that we can help answer for you ahead of Week 14, redraft, dynasty, keeper, best ball, you name it. DFS, betting, we'll help you out here in a little from the forum.
If you're up, start thinking about what to do. Here in between, we got advice for you. Back and forth all day, trying to pick the play. Let's hear what them boys here had to say. Presented by the Fantasy Football Advice Network.
The Fantasy Football Advice Network. Also, you can find them on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network app. You can also find them fantasyfootballadvice.com. That's an expensive URL, I imagine. But great community over there they're building. I asked a question last week. I was like, hey, who should I be starting this week? I got Bucky Irving. I got JSN. I got T. Higgins. Results all over the place. I got all results. Luckily, all those guys were dogs. So I appreciate them. I appreciate the entire Advice Network, everything they're doing over there. It's a great time to get involved over there. It's free to join. Make sure you're getting over there. I know a lot of people are looking for leagues, maybe looking for new league mates. They got league classifieds as well. You can DM, you can message with people over there. It's also gamified, so you can actually advance your rank. I think that's pretty cool as well. So make sure you guys are checking it out. You can download it on the app stores, whether you're on iOS, whether you're on Android still. Get it, the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. I want to go ahead and I want to round out the show with a question. A little bit of fantasy cops that Amber wants us to play here, saying, did Azeez Al-Shaiir deserve to be ejected and suspended for the hit on Trevor Lawrence? Boys, put on the hats, put on the badges here. What do you think? Because I'm going to be honest, in real time, it was one of those that like didn't look super dirty. You watch it back, it did look pretty dirty, but I don't know. I'm very mixed on this. I have very mixed emotions on this. I think it was dirty. I think it was with intention, but I don't know. I don't know. How do you feel about it? Open forum.
Here, I talked about this with a friend of mine earlier. Yes, he deserved to be suspended. I'm going to start with that. However, this quarterback sliding issue has been going on way too long, and I totally understand why he did what he did. Trevor Lawrence elongated that slide. Now, this man forearm shivered Trevor Lawrence in the head. I have never seen a linebacker tackle anybody ever with a forearm shiver. They're not Shawn Michaels, right? Like, they're not diving through the ring, like hitting someone with that. That is not how you tackle. That was a message sent to him. Just don't do that, right? We saw, like, I've said it openly. When Patrick Mahomes faked that slide a few weeks ago and then gained 10 more yards, if I was a defender, I would have blown his shit up. I don't care how far out of bounds he was. I would have taken that fine. I would have taken that suspension because I would have been like, you're not going to do that. The only way the NFL is going to fix this issue is one of two ways. Either remove the slide rule entirely or make it two-hand touch the second the quarterback goes past the line of scrimmage, or just the second they're touched, you blow the whistle. That is the only way you're going to fix this. Did he deserve the suspension? Absolutely. You cannot cause brain damage to somebody because you're mad that they slid too long. However, do I understand why he did what he did? Absolutely. So, yeah, he deserved to be suspended and ejected. It was a forearm shiver. It was not a tackle. It was not a legal move. And these are the most elite athletes on the planet, and they're going to be like, he didn't have enough time. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Stop.
Well, and I mean, we've seen it in the college game as well over the years. Kenny Pickett, famous for his fake slide. And then Cade Klubnik also pulled one out here for Clemson a couple weeks ago. Eric, what are your thoughts on this hit and this ejection, suspension, and ultimately what ends up leaving Trevor Lawrence pretty banged up and just a gruesome looking situation and just tough, man.
Yeah, I'll try to be unbiased as our Houston Texans correspondent. There are a number of different things at play here, right? Like, first and foremost, DeMeco Ryans defensive-minded head coach. You generally see players on a defensive-led team or led by a defensive-minded head coach. They're typically a bit more aggressive. Like, they fly to the ball, right? They kind of play on the fringes of the rule book a little bit. So That is a factor in this. While when you slow it down and look at every single angle, seems like he had a ton of time to pull up. In reality, he was like a half a second too late, right? Like it definitely was a late hit. The thing that Steve mentioned is bang on. The forearm shiver was 100% uncalled for. There is no place for that whatsoever. But this is the response that defensive players are going to have out there when quarterbacks have these kind of ticky-tack slide rules built for them, and they try to take advantage of it, right? Like it happened to be Trevor Lawrence in this case. In terms of the core of the questions, yes, he deserved to be ejected, A, because of the forearm shiver, no place for that. But B, if he stayed in that game, it was going to be a brawl for the rest of the afternoon. Like it was a player safety issue for him to remain in that contest for the rest of the game. So he deserved to go out there. In terms of the suspension, Tyler Bradley has mostly got it correct. It was a dirty hit. There's a lot of people out there saying that he is a dirty player. I wouldn't go quite that far, but the suspension was a body of work suspension. There were enough clips out there of him punching Roschon Johnson, of him having his hand slide up on the chosen one, Tom Brady's neck. So there's
on the Brady slander. He is the chosen one.
Yeah, right. There's enough evidence out there to where it was pretty easy for the NFL to throw the book at him and make an example out of him, right? If this was just kind of like Joe no-name defender, linebacker out there, this is probably a 1-game suspension. But because there's that hit reel, we've got him serving 3 now.
They need to fix the slide rule. And this is my honest to God proposition for it is it needs to be a 15-yard penalty.
Yep, I agree.
A loss of down and potentially a fine if you fake a slide. That's the only way, because at this point, how is a defender really supposed to know if you're going to go down?
I think 15 yards would honestly do it. I think that would stop people from doing it. And
I mean, they're not getting an extra 15 yards by faking the slide, right? So it's gotta be
an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, 15 yards from the previous spot, not where you faked it. Previous spot, you lose 15 yards.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you guys. I think there should be something, and let's get on the NFL. There's people smarter than us out there that can figure it out.
Fuck that. Hire us.
Yeah, I was gonna say I am with two of the smarter people I know here on the channel tonight, and I appreciate everything they do for us over here at IBT, including our guy Steve Lawson. He's at Steve_Lawson93 on Twitter. I'm at between_SethFF. Eric is at Fantasy Nav. Easiest way to support us. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. If you are new, like this video if you enjoy this type of content. Check out our entire community over at the Fantasy Football Advice Network, fantasyfootballadvice.com. And we'll see you guys next week. Check out the website, inbetweenmedia.com. In the meantime, if you guys have any questions, you can find us at our site Twitter or on our personal Twitters as well. Good luck. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you very soon. Until then, you know what to do. Keep it in between. Thank you.